Hello gang, Mario from The Woodfather. Today I've bought myself a new tool. It's only a small one, an Ozito battery powered palm router. Let's unbox it. This actually feels really cool. It's nice and small, but also a little bit heavy. So this is a trim router, a palm router. It's not for heavy duty work, it's for very light work. It cost me $119 at Bunnings in the skin only version, so no battery. This is Ozito. This is not Makita. This is not DeWalt. This is not Festool. This is Ozito. It is for light jobs around the house, in the workshop. I'm not going to work this thing hard. If you're looking at buying one of these, you don't want to be working it hard either, I wouldn't think. Having said that, all it has to do is get a bit and spin it around, so I think it's going to work for my needs perfectly. I expect to use it for putting profiles on small bits of wood. I love that there's no cord around it. That's the main reason I've bought it, and I'm looking forward to testing it out and seeing how it works. Now, of course, the very first thing I want to do is make sure that this thing turns on. So I've got one of my batteries, and let's see. All right, it works. We can actually test it out now. Now that I know that this works, I think the first thing I want to test is the depth adjustment to see if it's actually useful to use or not. So I believe it is, and I'm not going to look at the instructions because that's cheating. So that feels like a lock, so I'll unlock that. Now I can move this, oh yeah, I can move this up and down. Am I supposed to slide it or turn that knob? All right, I read the instructions to learn how to adjust the depth properly because it just didn't feel right, and it's a little bit better than how I was doing it. So number one, you do go and loosen or unlock this one. Then you can manually move this up and down where you want it to go to get your main distance. Then once you're near where you want to go, you use this just as a micro adjustment. And when you use it slowly, you can go sort of fractions of a millimeter. So I guess that does work. All you got to do then is tighten it up, and it doesn't really move at all once it's tightened up, so that part's pretty good. So it's not the most fluid movement in the world, I'll say that much, but it feels good at the moment. It's also got a really nice rubber grip here. This whole part's rubber, which feels really good and strong because you don't want your fingers slipping and going inside. All right, let's try and install a bit and see if we can actually use this thing. So to install it, first thing you have to do is take the guide off. That noise is actually a little bit annoying when you're going up and down. It comes with two spanners. One of them goes on the spindle, the other one goes on the lock nut, although this should be pretty loose already, and it is. So I drop that one in. So I think the idea is you get your bit, put it in to about where you want it, press down the spindle lock, and then finger tighten this part. Once you've got that finger tight, it's not going to move, but you're going to have to tighten it again. It does say specifically not to use the spanner while you're using the spindle lock. So then does this go back on? Yep. All right, and we're back on. All right, let's test it out. I'm going to go straight to this big heavy chunk of, I don't know, could be spotted gum, could be something else. It is extremely hard. Let's just put a little roundover on it. It was only after I finished editing this that I realised I spent the entire time testing the trim router using a 2 amp battery. I should have been using my 4 amp one. The user manual actually says that you should use 3 amp or above, and when I did come back out later on and test it with the 4 amp battery, yes, it does have a little bit more power, a little bit more grunt. Okay, so to be honest, that is exactly what I bought this tool for. It's to make nice, easy little roundovers or chamfers and things like that without having to take the workpiece over to the router table, because sometimes you can't take the workpiece over to the router table. So far, I'm really loving this thing. Cool little purchase. Let's test something else out. I thought a good test might be routing out an inlay in this hardwood. Everything started off well until... So yep, it looks like if you try to bite off a little bit more than this router can chew, it'll just turn itself off. I'm not too fussed about that at all, to be honest. I was cutting too deep, and this bit is probably quite old and blunt, which probably makes it even worse for it. Here I am using a flush trim bit with a small bearing, so I'm getting a full cut with the entire length of the bit. This is more than I would ever expect this trim router to have to do. I'm actually quite impressed that it finished this cut. I would expect this in pine, not in hardwood. I've got the straight edge in now, which to be honest, I didn't think I was ever going to use, but it does feel kind of handy. So it might actually get a run. And just a straight cut a bit in here. And all I'm going to try and do this time is, as I make straight lines, I'm going to vary the pressure that I'm putting down. So at the start, I might just go with half a hand. At the start, I might just go with one hand. And then by about halfway through, I'm going to put another hand on top of the battery and I'm going to press down. And I want to see how smooth that edge is. Yeah, I forgot about that too much death that doesn't like thing. Okay, let's try again. That one's on me. So outside of where I started and obviously dug too deep, I can't feel any sort of ripple or any sort of change or length across the whole length here. So that is as flat as I will ever need something to be. As for accessories, it's got this parallel guide, which I showed making those straight cuts. Useful. It also comes with this little center point type dealie. Can you see that? Come on, focus, focus, focus. I don't know if it's focusing. Anyway, this is just a little compass point. I think you take the wing nut out of here and you insert this instead, and then you can use this to create circles. I'm not going to do that because I'm never going to use that in practice. I know that I won't. I've got a bandsaw, a router table with a circle template and a CNC, so I do not need this. One thing it also has, which I'm going to test out now because I haven't actually seen one of these before, but it's an edge guide. So if you've got a straight cut router bit without a bearing on it, you can use this to set the edge that you want to trim. Let's see how that works because I've got no idea. I'm going to have to read the instructions. The last couple of little accessories, you get 2 spanners, which you need to change the bit. You have to have 2, you can't do it with 1. A little bit annoying, but is what it is. It actually also comes with a little guide bushing. I haven't used one of these for years and years and years. I've never found them all that useful. There's always been another way for me to make the same sort of cut. But if you like using them, there it is. It comes with a 1/4 inch collet and an 8mm collet. Oh, it also comes with a dust collection port. In practice, I know that there's no chance I'm ever going to use this, so this is going in the bin right now. Okay, let's see if we can figure out this little edge trimmer part. That's weird. Alrighty, I think I'm good to go with the edge trimmer guide now. So the guide bolts onto the router using the same mounting point as the parallel guide did from before. On the side here, this is your depth, so you can move this bearing, moves left and right with this knob here, and then once you've got it where you want it to be, you tighten it down with the knob on the top. So everything's nice and secure, nothing can be moved. The bearing's probably 3 or 4 mil above the router bit, so they're not going to come in contact with each other. I'm going to test this on a piece of MDF, which is screwed into a pine board, and the MDF is hanging over the edge. So the idea is that I'm going to use this to trim it up nice and tight to the pine. Let's see what happens. So I'll say it worked, but it's probably a million times easier just to use a flush trim router bit. Okay, so final thoughts. I have to say that I really, really like this thing. For 120 bucks, the fact that it frees me up from having a cord and from having big handles on the side and all that sort of stuff with my other routers, I think I'm really going to enjoy having this in the workshop. It is a little bit disappointing with diving into hardwoods, how it just sort of turns off effectively if you try and take too much meat off in one cut. But at the same time, I was testing it in a very, very hard wood. I made the same tests in pine and it had no problems in the world. So in pine, yeah, you can go and cut 4 or 5 mil in one shot and you won't have any issues. In whatever this is, I think it's a big chunk of spotted gum, you know, a couple of mil, and that's about all it can cope. But if you're a home hobbyist, you're not really going to be using this in that sort of wood. This is, for me, I'm probably going to put a roundover bit in it and it will probably never come out, to be honest. And then that way, whenever I need to put a roundover in something, I can just pick this up and zip along and it's going to be super fantastic. Very exciting. Anything else that I didn't mention? It does have power settings, speed settings. I don't really care about them. I'm going to put it on the highest speed and use it there all the time. I think you only really slow down a router when you've got a really big, meaty bit inside it. And for this little toy, I'm never going to put a big bit inside it. So I'm always going to keep it on the top speed. It has a lock and a power button. So if I just go and press power, nothing will come on. I have to hit the lock button first, which will turn on LEDs, I think. They're in there somewhere. Oh, there it is there. You can sort of see it. Once it's unlocked and the light's on, then you can hit power. and it spins on. And you can feel it, it's a slow start as well, which is really good. It doesn't just turn on like that. It speeds up. Once you put it down on the bench, I think you've got 30 seconds until that lock will time out, and then you'll have to press it again to turn it back on again. So you can't just accidentally go and tap the power button. All in all, 120 bucks, man. If you've already got batteries for it, 100% go for it. And honestly, even if I didn't have batteries, I probably would spend an extra 50 bucks on one just so I could have a little trim router like this. This is super fun, super exciting. And yeah, I really like it. If you're looking for a trim router, go for it. Hopefully that helps. It's not the most in-depth review that you've ever seen, but for the price, I think that's all you need to know. Yeah. Cheers, gang.